You are listening to Startup Lessons, a leading podcast series where you get startup lessons from global business gurus, business leaders, and Ivy League universities. This startup series is brought to you by www.startup.tk. Today's episode is...
Today we are looking at the world of Asia's aerospace and space tech industry.
Yeah.
Focusing, of course, on the big players, China and India. And we've got market reports, industry analyses, government announcements, all that good stuff to break down for you. The mission here is to really equip you with a solid grasp of what's driving this industry, the trends, the future potential, all that good stuff.
This is exciting stuff.
It is exciting stuff.
I mean, the Asia-Pacific region is becoming a dominant force.
Absolutely.
And what's so interesting is how we're seeing this commercial aviation growth being intertwined with these space exploration programs. And, you see this surge in government funding across Asia. And you also see increasing investment from the Middle East.
Yeah.
So this is really a global shift.
Yeah. So what's fueling all this? What's driving this growth? Well, for China, it seems like it's really their economic strength.
Yeah.
A highly developed supply chain, infrastructure in place, and a business landscape that's becoming more and more supportive.
It makes sense.
But it's not just China, right?
Yeah.
It's a region-wide thing.
It is.
We're seeing all these nations actively pursuing space exploration.
Yeah.
Large satellite constellations going up, proactive government strategies.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the advancements in the materials and the manufacturing, that's leading to better propellant tanks for satellites, which supports the growth of these constellations. And the demand for getting things into orbit is just huge.
Yeah.
Better navigation systems, 6G rollout, the exploration, and then there's a push towards smaller satellites in China, Japan, and India, and then just increases in spending from China, India, Japan, and South Korea. Nanosats, microsats, CubeSats.
Wow, so much going on.
It is. Launch costs are decreasing, too, like the rise of private space companies.
Right, and speaking of China, if we go back a little bit, it really started as a state-controlled program.
Right, very much government-led, state-owned enterprises like CSC, really at the forefront.
Yeah.
But, I mean, they've hit some huge milestones. First, landing on the far side of the moon, the Tiangong space station, first Chinese astronaut in space back in 2003.
Yeah, big achievements.
Yeah, the Beidou navigation system in 2020.
Yeah, they've really come a long way, and their plans going forward are even more ambitious.
They are.
Yeah, we're talking about 2021 to 2025. They're really prioritizing the civil space infrastructure.
Yeah, and the China Satellite Network Group wants to deploy this 13,000 satellite constellation for internet access.
13,000 satellites, wow.
Yeah, I mean, first 30 expected by the end of next year. And you just see this massive increase in government space spending. It shows you their commitment. And CSC continues to be key, developing the Long March rockets, managing that Tiangong station.
Yeah, and crewed moon missions by 2030.
Huge goal.
That's a huge one.
And they're looking at Mars landings, Mars sample return around 2030. Asteroid exploration, even Jupiter's moons. They want to go to the far side of the moon, collect samples there.
It's incredible.
Yeah, survey the lunar South Pole for water. It's a lot.
It really is. And then, on top of all that, we're also seeing this rise of commercial space companies in China since 2014.
It's been really exciting. I mean, firms like Landspace, iSpace, Galactic Energy, they're all making some serious progress. Successful orbital launches, reusable rocket tech. Landspace even launched the first liquid methane-fueled rocket. There are companies testing vertical takeoff and landing.
Wow.
Yeah, building satellite manufacturing facilities, developing rockets specifically to compete with SpaceX.
That's huge. So much happening in China.
Yeah.
But what about India? What's their space story looking like?
Well, they've really carved out this niche with their cost-effective and innovative approaches. I mean, the Chandrayaan-3 mission successfully landed on the moon's south pole in July of 2023.
That was a big one.
Yeah, and they're leaders in launching satellites for other countries with their Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, the PSLV, and then they've got the SSLV, the Small Satellite Launch Vehicle.
So they're really filling a specific need.
They are.
And they've got some big goals for the future, too, right?
Oh, yeah. Crewed mission to the moon by 2030. That's a key objective. Yeah. And then the Gaganyaan project to get Indian astronauts in Earth's orbit by 2025. And they want their own space station, the Indian space station.
Okay.
First module planned for 2028. They project their space economy to grow 5-fold in the next decade.
That's a lot of growth.
It is.
And it seems like the government is really behind this push.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you see policy reforms like changes to FDI rules,
Yeah.
venture capital fund, the Indian space policy of 2023. It's all designed to level the playing field for private companies and really attract that investment.
Attract talent, I'm sure.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
working. I mean, the amount of space startups popping up in India is unbelievable.
That's amazing.
It is. I mean, they went from having one in 2022 to around 200 now.
Wow.
It's incredible. You've got companies like Pixel, Agnicul Cosmos. They're developing small launch vehicles like their Agniban rocket. Bellatrix Aerospace, they're focusing on propulsion.
Good.
Dhruva Space, building small satellites. And Skyroot Aerospace, they launched India's first private rocket, the Vikram S.
So they're covering all the bases.
Yeah, I mean, funding reached almost $125 million last year, and these private players are working with ISRO on the Indian Space Station.
That's great.
Yeah, and there's more and more international partnerships forming.
So looking across Asia, what are some of the big trends that we're seeing here?
Well, satellite miniaturization is huge.
Okay.
We've seen a big increase in nano and microsatellites being deployed, driven by China, Japan, and India. And then on the other side, you've got the large constellations like China's 13,000 satellite Guang network.
Wow. Still can't get over that number.
Yeah, it's a lot. And the demand for broadband internet, that's fueling these constellations. And the economic potential of Earth observation data, especially when combined with AI, that's substantial.
Makes sense. And what about launch capabilities?
Well, reusable rocket technology is a big focus. In China, India, and Japan.
Right.
India's PSLV, that's already known for being cost effective. But the demand for these cheaper reusable options,
Right.
especially for small satellites, that's growing. And China's commercial sector is really making strides. Companies like Landspace and Deep Blue Aerospace, they're hitting milestones with vertical takeoff and landing tests.
Really pushing the boundaries there.
Yeah, I mean, they're aiming to compete with SpaceX.
That's a big goal. And space exploration, that continues to drive innovation.
Absolutely.
I mean, you see India's success with Chandrayaan-3, China's ambitions for crewed lunar landings and Mars sample returns. All of this is pushing the boundaries.
Yeah, and private companies are playing a bigger and bigger role.
That's great to see. So we see all this growth in both China and India,
Yeah.
but they seem to be taking very different approaches.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? China, very strong government direction, dominance of state-owned enterprises. Their commercial sector is expanding, but it's within this regulatory framework. Whereas India, they have their government program, but they're really emphasizing the private sector. You know, FDI, venture capital.
So what are some of the strengths and weaknesses of these different approaches?
Well, for China, strengths, definitely the government support, infrastructure, and the growing commercial sector. But a challenge could be that the level of government control might stifle innovation and competition.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Whereas India, they're strong in cost effectiveness, innovation, a really dynamic private sector, and of course the government support. But maybe some weaknesses are the scale of their program compared to China and the competition their private sector faces.
Yeah, going up against these huge state-backed companies.
Exactly. It's tough.
It is. And how are international collaborations and competition affecting all this in Asia?
Well, we see more and more international collaborations happening. India's partnering with various space agencies. There's potential support from NASA for a commercial space station, and they're part of the Artemis Accords. China's working on the International Lunar Research Station, sharing data from its moon missions. Japan and South Korea are also key players. But at the same time, you have this global competition.
Right.
China's commercial sector wants to rival SpaceX. India's touting the cost effectiveness of their PSLV. And all these private companies are racing to develop reusable rockets.
It's a fascinating time.
It is. And Southeast Asian nations, they might become these neutral hubs.
Interesting.
Yeah, kind of this friendshoring idea.
Makes sense. So with all this happening, what are the bigger implications here, the socioeconomic implications?
Well, the impact is huge. We're talking massive job creation, not just in space, but aviation and other supporting sectors. The space economy, it's transformative, driving tech innovation in materials, science, propulsion, electronics, software, and those benefits spill over into other industries.
That's great.
Yeah, and new commercial opportunities.
Yeah.
Satellite comms, remote sensing, Earth observation data analysis, maybe even space tourism eventually. And India, their space economy is projected to create a ton of high-skill jobs.
Yeah, so it's not just about reaching for the stars.
Right.
It's about these real benefits here on Earth.
Exactly. I mean, we're seeing better communication capabilities, environmental monitoring, agricultural practices, urban planning, resource management, all being improved. Satellite data is crucial for disaster response. Navigation systems like Beidou are becoming vital, and it's inspiring STEM education, leading to more breakthroughs.
Absolutely, and that's really what makes it so fascinating. This rapid evolution of Asia's aerospace sector, China and India taking these different but ambitious paths, the potential of all these emerging technologies, and the impact of all these international dynamics.
It's amazing to see.
It is. It really is.
And it makes you wonder, right? I mean, with all this government ambition and private sector innovation, what kind of unexpected discoveries or applications might we see come out of Asia's journey into space in the next decade?
A lot to think about, that's for sure. And on that note, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, everyone.
That concludes today's episode. We hope you enjoyed it. If you want hands-on help in crafting a marketing plan and growth hack your startup, get in touch with Aditya Basu, publisher of Startup Lessons, for one-to-one startup building and growth hacking advice. With Aditya's help, you can ensure that your team is well-suited for success. You can book Startup Advisory via WhatsApp. Get startup lessons from global business gurus, business leaders, and Ivy League universities. Visit www.startup.tk today.